At my birthday party, my mom disclosed a hidden surprise to my brother that changed everything forever. Jake Thompson stood at the edge of the living room, anxiety knotting his stomach as laughter danced around him. It was his 16th birthday, a day that had always celebrated the notion of family, a day for homemade cake, wrapped presents, and the warmth of togetherness. Yet tonight, something felt off. His gaze flickered to his older brother, Kyle, who seemed weighed down by unspoken burdens, his smile forced, his eyes lingering on the ground as if it held all the answers. The usual buzz of excitement turned into a heavy hum, filling the air with an unshakable sense of dread. Ellen, their mother, glided through the room, spreading joy and laughter, but a shadow hovered over her face as she glanced toward Kyle. Jake's heart quickened, he knew the signs. It was something he'd seen so many times before, a subtle tug of conflict between his brother and their family expectations. He leaned against the wall, unease settling in as he tried to shake off the possibility that tonight would leave a mark he could not erase. Suddenly, the room quieted. Ellen stood up, cradling Jake's birthday cake, the flickering candles casting a warm glow on her worried features. "Boys," she said, her voice steady yet trembling, "I have something important to share." The birthday song stilled, voices fading into muted whispers. Jake's pulse quickened, anticipation mixing with fear. What could possibly disrupt the joy of this night? "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A long-hidden family legacy was about to unravel. Ellen's voice turned firm, and a cold chill swept through Jake as he processed her words. "Kyle has been managing our grandfather's business this past year." A stunned silence fell over the gathered friends and family, the air thickening as a ripple of confusion ran through Jake. His brother had been keeping this a secret, carrying the weight of expectations half buried under a smile. Jake felt his heart constrict, a mix of jealousy and confusion swirling within him. Kyle, the golden child, was thrust into the spotlight once more, a pressure that Jake felt, unfurling like a dark cloud. What about him? The dreams he had nestled within were cast aside like yesterday's wrapping paper. Kyle's face reflected a wounded beast, shame tangled with determination, a contradiction that left Jake questioning everything. Why hadn't he seen this? Shouldn't he have known? It struck him then with brutal clarity. Their mother's affection was tied to this legacy, the invisible string pulling them both into a conflict he never anticipated. The once celebratory atmosphere was privy to a darker truth. The laughter felt hollow now, the cake and candles mere props in this emotional play. Kyle, the family star, was tethered to something bigger while Jake stood on the periphery, grappling with feelings of inadequacy. Would he ever be anything but the other brother in this familial hierarchy? As the room buzzed with hushed whispers once more, Jake felt both invisible and betrayed by the very family values he held close. The burning question loomed in the air: could family love really survive as dreams and expectations collided? As Jake looked at Kyle, both brothers stood at a crossroads, and the unspoken tension hung between them like an unfinished sentence in a story that had only just begun. Jake's mind raced as the reality of his brother's confession sank in. The warm glow of candles felt like the glare of a harsh spotlight, exposing vulnerabilities he'd never wanted to confront. Thoughts spiraled as he considered what Kyle managing their grandfather's business truly meant. Suddenly, the dynamics of their relationship seemed to shift into razor-sharp clarity. Kyle was not just the dependable older brother anymore, he was the family's chosen one, the one burdened with expectations that Jake had never been prepared to shoulder. As the crowd mingled, Jake instinctively drifted toward the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. The night felt suffocating, and he needed air, space away from the laughter that now sounded mocking. Stepping outside, the crisp night wrapped around him like an anesthetic, quieting the chaos of his mind. Stars sparkled above, an ironic contrast to his swirling emotions, a reminder of the vastness of the world beyond their family struggles. He leaned against the cool wooden railing, contemplating what Kyle's role in the family legacy meant for him. It wasn't just jealousy gnawing at him but a sense of unmoored identity. Was he always destined to be the shadow? He had dreams, plans for his future that glimmered like those stars, but they felt frivolous next to the monumental weight Kyle was now shouldering. "Hey, you okay?" Kyle's voice broke through the reverie. Jake turned, forcing a smile that felt foreign. There was an aura of uncertainty in Kyle's eyes, a vulnerability that Jake hadn't expected. For the first time, he saw Kyle not just as the golden child, but as someone struggling beneath the weight of obligations. "I don't know, man," Jake replied, choosing honesty over feigned bravado. "Is everything okay with you?" "Like, really?" Kyle took a step closer, the distant laughter from inside muted but present. "I didn't plan for this, you know? Mom put a lot of pressure. It hurts to keep secrets from you." Jake felt a flicker of connection, something lost and untangled between them. It wasn't just Kyle's struggle, it was their shared history, the bond that had once been unbreakable. "Then why didn't you tell me? I could have helped." "I didn't want to burden you," Kyle said, running a hand through his hair, an all too familiar gesture of stress. "You're young. You shouldn't have to deal with this." There it was, the insidious doctrine of familial hierarchy. He could be the younger brother who remained unscathed, or the one who stood up and faced the existential threat head-on. But what did it mean for Kyle to bear such a weight alone? What did it mean for Jake to remain in a position of emotional complacency? "I'm not the kid you think I am, Kyle. I'm tired of being sidelined," Jake voiced, fighting to temper the wave of anger and fear. "Maybe I want to be part of this too." Kyle blinked, the surprise evident in his face. "You'd want to help with the family business? I thought you had your own dreams." "I do," Jake replied, standing taller. "But I can't just stand back while you're carrying everything. Maybe I have things to offer." It was a pivotal moment, a chance to redefine their brotherhood beyond the constraints of expectation. Yet, Jake felt danger resting on the horizon. Would stepping into this familial legacy mean sacrificing his own aspirations, too? As they shared a long look, each brother bore the weight of an unspoken pact. There was resolution simmering beneath the surface. Jake felt emboldened, his identity taking form in the possibility of actively participating in this newfound reality. But just as the first spark of determination ignited, a figure approached from the shadows, their mother, Ellen, with a look of concern etched across her features. The air crackled, a palpable tension bringing Jake's burgeoning resolve to a standstill. "How long have you two been out here?" she questioned, her voice carrying a hint of something deeper than maternal concern. Jake braced himself. Secrets, identity, and familial loyalty intertwined chaotically, ready to unravel. The moment was charged with uncertainty, and Jake knew their journey had only just begun. The silence hung heavy around them, like the humid air before a thunderstorm. Jake's heart drummed in his chest, a primal instinct demanding a fight-or-flight response. He studied his mother, her apprehensive gaze scanning the backyard as if seeking an escape from the candid conversation she'd walked into. The air crackled with a tension that seemed to pour over everything, entangling words unspoken but palpably felt. "Mom," Jake began, forcing himself to take a deep breath, "Kyle just told me about the business and what's been going on." Ellen's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of indignation igniting her demeanor. She crossed her arms defensively, and Jake could see the storm in her eyes. "And you think keeping Kyle's burdens a secret was the right thing to do?" "No, it's not that," Jake pressed, understanding that this was more than just about secrets. It was about direction, purpose, and the unraveling family legacy. "But Kyle shouldn't be dealing with this alone. I'm ready to step in and help." Kyle shifted beside him, his uncertainty now palpable. Ellen's gaze sharpened, and for the first time, Jake saw her as a mother not just protective of her children but also fiercely determined to hold the family together. "This isn't just about what you want, Jake. It's complicated." The business your grandfather's legacy, it's not something to take lightly. And there it was, the expectation dripped from her words. Jake felt a surge of indignation wash over him. Did she even hear him? He wasn't asking for a carefree adventure, he was stepping toward responsibility. It's not about what I want, Mom. It's about what's right. Family means sharing burdens, not just passing them between the older and younger. Ellen sighed, her defenses easing slightly as she shifted the weight of her thoughts. You think you know what this entails? The late nights, the pressure to succeed, the scrutiny? I don't want that for you. But I want to be part of it. Jake's voice rose with uncharacteristic fervor, shaking off the shadow of inadequacy that so often clouded his identity. I'm tired of seeing you both bear this alone. If I'm going to find my place in our family, then I need to embrace these challenges head-on, just like you did. The word you had hung between them, cherished yet complex. He directed it like an arrow, hoping it might pierce through the protective walls around her heart. Ellen's posture softened, her facade slipping for just a moment, revealing the vulnerable mother beneath the obligations. Do you even understand what that means? Kyle interjected, his anxiousness bubbling to the surface. What if you weren't cut out for this, Jake? This isn't a game. It's a risk. Maybe that's the point. Jake stepped closer, unwavering in his resolve. I've spent too long letting fear dictate my life. The legacy is as much mine as it is yours. I need to know who I am. This could be the chance to find out. Ellen's eyes flickered with a blend of admiration and concern as she regarded her youngest son, realization dawning upon her like the morning sun. This isn't like turning in homework or scoring points on a field, Jake. It's about commitment, about how far you're willing to go for the sake of our name. Are you sure you're ready for that? Jake met her gaze, feeling a sense of strength course through him. I'm ready to try. I want to be part of shaping our future. His heartbeat began to steady as the tension in the air softened, marking the end of simply knowing who they were as brothers, and the beginning of realizing who they could become as a family. Yet, questions loomed heavy. Would this be a dual transformation they could all embrace? Could Jake not only redefine his role but also shed the shadows of past expectations? Just then, Kyle's phone buzzed on the patio table, shattering the moment. He checked the screen, his expression darkening. It's about the upcoming board meeting. They want an update from us today. The urgency shifted, away from tender resolutions toward the reality of what lies ahead. The brothers exchanged glances, each of them understanding that the true test of their pact was only beginning. With a steadiness riven by newfound purpose, Jake felt the pull of destiny. The moment had come to face not just the weight of expectation but also the unresolved conflict within him. What strategies would he employ to balance family loyalty with the fierce desire for personal growth? The hour was turning, and Jake was ready to discover how deep the roots of their legacy truly ran. As the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows cloaked the backyard where the family's legacy felt more palpable than ever. Jake stood on the patio, heart racing, suddenly aware that this meeting wouldn't be just another ordinary discussion, it would be a reckoning. Purpose surged through him. He wasn't just attending the board meeting to support Kyle, he was stepping into a role that could define who he was. Let us gather everyone in the living room, Kyle said, gripping Jake's shoulder as they turned toward the house. They moved with a shared understanding, a silent agreement that neither could afford to back down now. Inside the house, the air buzzed with anticipation. Ellen sat at the head of the table, her demeanor radiating both strength and apprehension. Jake shuffled his papers, feeling the weight of expectation bearing down. Although they had yet to fully grasp the gravity of their family legacy, the uncertain filigree of ambition unfurled around them, igniting a blend of anxiety and eagerness within him. As the meeting unfolded, board members exchanged updates and concerns, their words slicing through the air. Each report unveiled a different facet of the business: a financial challenge here, a potential opportunity there. Jake tuned in and out of conversations, trying to capture the essence of what they stood to gain or lose. What he didn't anticipate was how deeply he would resonate with the decisions being made. When his turn came, he stood up, forcing himself to speak with authority. I know I might seem inexperienced, but I believe it's vital that we not only address our current setbacks but also focus on long-term growth. We need to innovate, expand our market reach, bring fresh ideas to the table. His words surprised not just the board but himself, too. A few board members raised brows while some exchanged glances, curiosity flickering across their faces. A surge of confidence coursed through him, but it was soon met by an immediate challenge. Jake, while your enthusiasm is commendable, the realities of this business are far more complex, fragile, a seasoned board member retorted, skepticism tainting his tone. Do you truly understand the depths of what you're proposing? Jake's pulse quickened, and that familiar spark of self-doubt threatened to extinguish what he had just ignited. Every ounce of courage fought against the instinct to retreat. Instead, he found clarity. I may not have years of experience, but I understand how markets change. I want us to become adaptable. What if we considered feedback from our loyal customers? They hold the key to our success. Ellen's eyes widened, unmasked concern turning to pride as she quietly observed her son's transformation. His proposition met murmurs of intrigue, the board members leaning in ever so slightly, curious about the fresh perspective. The meeting shifted in tone, a subtle shift. Ideas rolled through the collective mind of the assembly as they began to discuss potential outreach strategies. As they bounced concepts off one another, Jake felt a strange fulfillment. In this moment, each idea didn't just belong to the family's legacy, it was also shaping a new version of himself. Yet, as the dynamic morphed, Jake couldn't ignore the nagging fear that shadowed him. Was this a fleeting moment of brilliance, or was there a real path towards his commitment to the family legacy? Doubt flickered in his mind. The legacy wasn't just about success but also the burden of maintaining it. After the meeting, as the board members exited, Kyle approached Jake, vigor shining in his eyes. That was incredible. You've got what it takes. Jake looked away briefly, processing the weight of affirmation. Do I? What if I make a mistake? Everyone thinks I can handle this, but I still feel like I'm treading on uncharted waters. Every pioneer felt that way, Kyle said practically, a comforting residue in his tone. You need to trust yourself. Remember what Mom said, legacy is about commitment. You're already making strides. Nervous energy pulsed through Jake's veins, the truth of his brothers' words lingering like a promise. What did this mean for their family dynamic? Would he rise to the challenge of balancing brotherhood with the responsibility now levying upon him? As he stood there, enveloped in uncertainty, he couldn't shake the thought that true confrontation with his internal conflicts lay ahead. A decision loomed: his commitment to personal growth versus the weight of familial expectation could soon fracture everything he hoped to build. But he was ready to face it all. After all, he had just unearthed a glimpse of his potential. What else might he discover about himself under pressure? The clock ticked on as he pondered, with each second dragging him closer to a reality he could shape. Would he rise to become the visionary he aspired to be, or would the fear of failure hold him back? A deep breath filled his lungs, the tension mounting toward a pivotal crossroad in his journey. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, mirroring the anxiety that twisted in Jake's stomach. He paced in the kitchen, restless, burdened by the weight of his own potential and the relentless ticking of the clock. Each movement felt heavier than the last, a looming reminder that the board's next meeting was just around the corner. This time, he would not be merely an observer. He would have to follow through on the vision he had articulated, a challenge that flooded him with eagerness and dread. Ellen entered, her presence filling the room with a comforting warmth. She poured herself a cup of coffee, her eyes finding Jake's. There was a question hanging in the air, unspoken yet palpable. "What's on your mind?" she finally asked, concern lacing her voice. Jake hesitated. "Mom, yesterday felt different." "I felt different. But, what if I can't follow through? What if it was just a moment of enthusiasm?" Ellen set her mug down, her expression turning serious. "You took a risk, Jake. That's a part of leadership. If you keep second-guessing yourself, you will miss the opportunity to lead. Trust in your abilities, you've been given a unique perspective, and that matters." Her words resonated, but doubt lingered, nagging at him like an unwelcome guest. He nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in her statement yet plagued by an internal tempest. Could he truly combine vision with execution? As the day unfolded, Jake immersed himself in market research, determined to substantiate his ideas. He combed through data, absorbing every statistic and analyzing customer feedback. A new clarity began to emerge from the chaos, an understanding of how his family's business could evolve in an ever-changing marketplace. Ideas sprang forth: streamlined processes, innovative product adaptations, enhanced customer engagement. He scribbled notes relentlessly, the flood of inspiration transforming his anxiety into an exhilarating commitment. But with each idea, darker thoughts crept in. What if the board didn't see it? What if they dismissed his proposals as youthful ignorance? He could already hear the skepticism in their voices, could almost feel the condescension radiating from the more experienced members. Jake forced himself to confront the mental landscape he was creating. Instead of retreating behind layers of doubt, he committed to mastering his anxiety. He practiced his presentation obsessively, rehearsing every point while standing before a mirror in his bedroom. He addressed the reflection, fighting to infuse confidence into every word, every gesture. This was about more than the business, it was about Jake emerging from the shadows of uncertainty. As the hours flew by, he could hardly distinguish the lines between day and night, each tick of the clock both a comfort and a reminder that time was slipping away. When he finally glanced at himself, he saw someone new, determined yet vulnerable, raw potential wrapped in the skin of someone still learning to navigate life's challenges. The day of the board meeting arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with a peculiar tension. As Jake made his way to the office, the familiar faces of board members lined the walls, reflecting a mix of expectation and doubt. But within him, the fire had been stoked. He was no longer just a part of a legacy, he was ready to be a catalyst for its evolution. Before he stepped into the conference room, he locked eyes with Kyle across the hallway. His brother offered a reassuring nod, instilling a spark of belief. Jake straightened his posture, squaring his shoulders as he mulled over Ellen's words, "Trust yourself." With every step toward the room, the growing exhilaration pushed aside the remnants of doubt, replaced by the intoxicating potential of change. As he entered with papers clenched tightly in hand, he could feel the collective gaze fix on him. The moment was now. The room waited, poised for his unveiling, the unfolding of his vision, a reflection of his renewed self. Jake realized then that this was not just a presentation, it was his chance to stand firmly before them, to articulate not only new ideas but a fresh version of himself. Would they embrace his proposals, or would they dismiss them as merely another naive attempt? The uncertainty hung like a veil, but as he opened his mouth to speak, determination surged through him. Yet, just as the first words slipped between his lips, a voice echoed from the end of the table, halting his thoughts. "Before we discuss Jake's ideas, I have a significant announcement to make regarding the board's direction." Jake's heart raced. What could this mean for his vision? Who controlled the narrative? As uncertainty returned, he steeled himself. The next moment could redefine everything he had worked toward, or strip away the ground he had just begun to stand on. Jake's mind spiraled as he processed the board member's words. The room shifted from a space of focus on his ideas to an arena of uncertainty. With a subtle, rehearsed breath, he sought to quell the rising tide of panic, and yet, that panic surged with a rush of adrenaline. What does this mean? He caught himself thinking, his heart racing in synchronicity with his pounding apprehension. Impossible to ignore, the external tension amalgamated with his internal struggle as he fought against the tide of doubt that threatened to engulf him once more. The board member continued speaking, but Jake's thoughts strained to keep up. Instead of absorbing the announcement, a thick fog descended over his mind, battling with glimpses of determination he had cultivated over weeks of introspection and practice. He explicitly recognized a critical choice: wallow in the engulfing uncertainty or capitalize on this inflection point. Jake's grip on his presentation notes tightened. Heads were nodding, their focus intent, yet he felt obscured, sidelined even. the equilibrium of power within that room hung in precarious balance. He glanced to his side. Kyle's expression mirrored a nervous anticipation, yet there was an undercurrent of support in his brother's posture. Jake clung to that familial tether, a reminder of why he was there, not just for his work, but for the legacy they shared. He realized in that moment, he was capable of commanding his own narrative. When the board member finally paused, Jake's voice cut through the thickened air like a well-rehearsed dagger. Before we proceed, I think it's crucial we assess how this announcement aligns with our market strategies and the potential impact. I believe our fresh initiatives can drive that goal forward. The gasp from some members indicated they were taken aback. He felt a flicker of triumph amid the mounting tension, his spirit igniting with astonishment at his own audacity. Could he truly sustain this newfound confidence? Would it translate into actionable influence? The chair of the board, an older man with decades of experience etched onto his lined face, raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. Interesting angle, Jake. Why don't you elaborate a bit more? As he began to speak, a clarity emerged, transformed from the frenetic chaos of his mind. Points flowed from him, not as scripted lines but as a genuine dialogue. He was no longer just delivering a presentation, he was engaging. He spoke of innovative restructuring, of breaking the mold that had confined the business for far too long, bolstered by the research he had laboriously gathered. Each word resonated on a deeper level than the last. As he watched some members lean in, curiosity dancing across their features, the earlier weight of intimidation lifted. Jake realized that in this moment, he had not only presented ideas, he had declared himself a player at the table. Yet the opening remained fraught with uncertainty. Just as enthusiasm began to swell, another board member interjected, casting doubt. Those ideas are ambitious, Jake. But can we afford to divert from proven methods? Especially right now? The challenge felt personal, as if they were questioning not only the plans but his entire assertion of competence. He could sense the scrutiny from his peers, the judgment trailing behind the inquiry. A shadow of self-doubt flickered ominously. Have we ever calculated the cost of not changing? Jake shot back, steadied by an unexpected surge of assertiveness. If we remain stagnant, we risk alienating our customers. The market waits for no one. This is not about ambition, it's about survival. The silence that followed seemed to stretch painfully, the room vibrating with unspoken considerations. Jake could feel the shift begin, hesitation replaced by introspection, some nodding in reluctant agreement. He realized that this confrontation with skepticism was not a setback but a defining moment, a test of his conviction. Whether he would emerge victorious or dimmed by their challenge hinged on his next decision. He took a deep breath, letting determination fuel his response. But just then, the board member's earlier announcement echoed in his mind, rekindling the original uncertainty. What lay ahead with their new strategic direction? Would they remain committed to his vision, or would he be lost in this corporate tide? An incipient realization dawned on him, this was not just about convincing them of his ideas. It was about navigating the labyrinth of corporate politics to assert his rightful place, the personal evolution of a young man stepping into the crosshairs of leadership. As he prepared to articulate his conclusions, the atmosphere recharged with tension. Jake caught Kyle's eye once more. The reassurance hung between them, igniting a flame of fortified belief. But beneath that newfound confidence, Jake felt the tug of doubt again. With stakes rapidly escalating, could he truly seize this moment? The air thickened as the room awaited his next words. Jake's heart raced, knowing that every decision now held the potential to reshape his future. The conversation was shifting, and he had to capitalize or risk everything. Uncertain on how to proceed, he steadied his resolve, recalling his training and all that he had fought through. The connection to his vision and the challenges he faced crystallized. Yet, could his resolve withstand the pressures of today's revelations? As he opened his mouth to speak again, he sensed the precipice of transformational change beneath his feet, a dilemma lying ahead. The weight of the moment hung suspended before him. This was exactly where his journey began. What would his next decision demand from him? How far was he willing to go to stand firm in his vision? As the board members leaned in, awaiting his reply, Jake faced the simmering abyss of uncertainty, ready to step forward or fall back. Jake took a breath, searching for clarity amidst the chaos swirling in his mind. The board members were watching him, their attention a palpable force that begged for a resolution. He could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on his shoulders. Let us consider not just change, but the need for adaptability, he finally spoke, his voice steady, although he felt like he was walking a tightrope. Our market is evolving, not just around us but within the very nature of what our customers expect from us. If we look to the past as our guide, we may miss opportunities to lead. Jake's resolve began to solidify as he spoke. Every word he articulated was carefully crafted yet powered by a burgeoning sense of purpose. He hadn't just practiced for this moment, he had internalized it. The hesitation that had once governed his approach was replaced by a synchronized rhythm of thought and expression. But as he continued, doubts flashed through him like lightning in a summer storm. He was asking them to trust a vision he himself was still formulating. Every nod from the board was outweighed by the looming specter of their skepticism. Ambitious ideas can be inspiring, but they also risk alienating our core audience, another board member warned, cutting through Jake's burgeoning enthusiasm. We must remember the strength of our legacy. There it was, the familiar tug of uncertainty. This was more than just a debate about business strategy for Jake, it felt like exposing his very self, his dreams, and aspirations to a room full of critics. Could he really bear the weight of their judgment? Legacy is important, he countered, but we grow that legacy by evolving it, not by keeping it static. It's essential to acknowledge that our present strategies might not sustain us in the future. Isn't it our duty to protect and innovate for those we serve? With every rebuttal, he could sense his voice gaining strength. He was no longer just a participant in the dialogue, he was leading it. The confidence that had flickered to life in him now blazed, even as the stakes rose higher with each response from the board. Yet with that fire came the realization of risk. Was he willing to place everything on the line? To voice these ideas that might be branded as reckless or naive? The specter of failure loomed closer, but along with it, an undeniable thread of determination wound tighter. Then a thought flashed across his mind, what if this was not just about the company's future, but his own? Navigating this uncertainty was crucial for him to cement his place in this world. This was the battleground of his ambitions where he could either falter or find his footing. Jake locked eyes with Kyle, who was perhaps more nervous than he had been at the start, yet still offering a semblance of support. That connection energized him. We owe it to ourselves to innovate, rather than merely survive, Jake asserted, his voice gaining vigor. Stagnation will only lead to obscurity. We must take these calculated risks, the market demands it, and we must not neglect our collective's aspirations. The shift in the room was palpable. No longer was he simply a voice among many, he was igniting something deeper in each of the board members. The dismissive nature melted to contemplation as a few began nodding thoughtfully. It was evidence that his ideas were beginning to resonate. But then, just as the dam began to crack, the chairman's expression darkened, casting a long shadow over Jake's burgeoning hope. Ambition is commendable, Jake. But vision without strategy is folly. That felt like a punch to the gut, and doubt surged back in a wash of adrenaline. The sharpness of the chairman's rebuttal fed into the uncertainty that still clawed at him. Was he prepared for this? Let me put that into perspective, Jake said, seizing the moment, his internal resolve hardening against the objections. A strategy rooted in the past will not yield success in the future. I propose we form a task force that includes key stakeholders to evaluate our trajectory and implement a gradual transition of our practices. It's not an oath of complete upheaval, but an invitation to dialogue that's where innovation starts. As he finished, the chair leaned back, arms crossed, weighing each word. The room reverberated with a tense silence, but this time, it felt charged with potential instead of dread. Jake sensed a budding energy, as if they were all on the verge of a collective awakening. Yet, amidst the promising shift, Jake felt the burden of his vulnerability. He was staking his future not only on this strategy but on his capacity to lead this dialogue. His heart raced, a mixture of fear and exhilaration coursing through him. Would they embrace this shift and grant him the weight of their trust, or would he find himself pushed back into the shadows? The tension throbbed around him like an unsteady heartbeat. The moment had transformed into a battlefield for authority and belief, and Jake could feel the stakes continuing to rise. In the aftermath of his declaration, he braced himself for the next volley, prepared to fight for his vision. How far was he willing to push against the established order? Would his emerging confidence withstand the pressures now building against him? This wasn't just a meeting, it was an inflection point that would shape his professional identity. Jake's journey lay at a crossroads of immense significance, his next move awaited by both his peers and his own aspirations. Would he take that leap, or would he pull back into the familiar confines of doubt? The silence in the boardroom felt heavier than ever, each second stretching out like an insistent echo of Jake's last words. He could sense the vacant gaze of the chairman, the scrutiny of the board members weighing heavily on his morale. They were pillars of the past. Could he, a relatively new voice, truly shift this legacy they held dear? "Jake," the chairman finally said, breaking the tension with a measured cadence, "you're suggesting a significant pivot. How do you plan on handling the pushback from our loyal clientele? They trust our legacy, and any alteration may frighten them away." The question hit him in a vulnerable spot, deep within his psyche. Jake had thought about this incessantly but hadn't anticipated it would come so soon, or so brutally, during this intense exchange. He felt a rush of heat rise through his face, yet somewhere deep inside, a flicker of determination surged. "Trust is built through transparency," he countered, voice steadying despite the tempest inside. "We can engage our customers in the conversation about our changes. Surveys, focus groups transform their trust into participation. When they feel part of the evolution, it becomes a shared legacy." A few board members raised their eyebrows, possibly impressed. But Jake was acutely aware that was only half the battle. The chairman remained unconvinced. Shared legacy, or an unstable gamble? There's a fine line. Doubt tried to creep back into his mind, it gnawed relentlessly, whispering the potential for failure just outside his consciousness. This was not merely an existential threat to the company but, more alarmingly, a personal challenge to his emerging identity. Had he taken on more than he could handle, believing that he was molded for leadership? "Let's be honest," he pressed on, heart racing. "Staying inert is a gamble itself. We risk losing our relevance, and the market doesn't wait. If we hesitate now, we may find ourselves at the mercy of a competitor who seizes this moment." Something shifted in the room at his statement, a sense of recognition. It was a slight crack in the armor of the established mindset, a moment of clarity for the board members that Jake could almost taste. As the chairman leaned forward, an intensity ignited in Jake's chest, urging him to broaden the conversation. "This transition can't be solely dictated by our fears of losing what we have. It should be propelled by our desires for what we can be. I'm offering a collaborative path, where we can generate energizing solutions instead of clinging to conservative methods." For a brief second, the humanity of the group was evident. He could read strain and contemplation on their faces. They too were searching, perhaps even reflecting on their own hesitance, and here was Jake, daring to articulate what many of them had secretly thought. "Encourage innovation," he urged, focusing on the chair. "Emphasize entrepreneurship within teams. Promote a culture where risks are celebrated rather than shunned. Let us be leaders, not just followers of our own legacy." The chairman rubbed his chin, assessing the ambition in Jake's voice. This renewed energy had morphed their skepticism into a conversation, and Jake felt a spark of hope. Could he actually shift the tide? But just then, as hope flared within him, another board member broke the moment. "It's not just about the market adapting, Jake. It's about people. We cannot ignore the emotional aspect of this transition." Jake shifted in his seat. This was the crux. He did not want to face the emotional ramifications of change. What if he alienated loyal employees who thrived in the familiarity of tradition? "I understand. We need to address the unease, we should also celebrate what they have accomplished thus far," he said. "Change can be an opportunity for growth. Again, Jake felt the weight of their collective gaze, digging into his resolve, demanding answers. As he searched for the right words, an illuminating thought crossed his mind. He was learning not just to advocate for change but to embody it, to live within the spaces of potential conflict to emerge stronger. But the director's skeptical tone interrupted his thoughts. How will you handle dissent amongst our employees as we push for innovation? Leadership is about managing people, not just concepts. The anxiety bubbled again, yet he had come too far to retreat. This meeting was the defining moment. How he responded would shape not only the company's culture but also his place within it. Embrace dissent, he dared to say, a surge of insight pushing him forward. It's a healthy sign of engagement. Let us harness that energy, not suppress it. Identifying concerns openly could create a platform for genuine dialogue, helping us refine our strategy continuously. The rhythmic thumping of Jake's heartbeat filled his ears as he waited for their response. What had he just opened himself up to? A leadership style wagging at the edges of consensus building, yet well aware of the risks involved? Would they see his willingness to redefine his approach as leadership potential, or merely as recklessness? The future of the company teetered on the edge of his conviction, and he would either be welcomed into a new role or vilified for his audacity. Jake's thoughts raced. For better or worse, he was now entrenched in this battle, inching closer to the realization of who he might become. What would his next decision reveal about his capacity to lead amid uncertainty? As the tension coiled around him with a mix of anticipation and dread, Jake sensed something shifting within himself, a quiet determination solidifying at his core. The outcome would demand sincerity. Would he be enough despite the odds stacked against him? The boardroom was still, the air thick with unspoken judgments and unshared fears. Jake's heart thumped steadily against his chest, a reminder that he was alive, breathing, and fighting for something larger than himself. He could feel the scrutiny of each board member pressing in on him, their doubts wrapped tightly in the fabric of tradition. He needed to pivot, not just for the company but to cement his own identity as a leader. Let us consider the emotional landscape, Jake pressed, pushing against the walls they had built. People fear change. We all do. But if we can make them realize that their concerns are part of the conversation, we can turn fear into excitement. Let us host workshops, let us invite everyone to participate in a version of this new narrative. It's not about abandoning our roots, but revolutionizing our approach to align with future needs. The chairman appeared thoughtful, a slight furrow creasing his brow as he absorbed Jake's words. It was a small victory, but Jake knew it was just the beginning. Yet, the deeper truth gnawed at him. What if his vision failed? What if he became a scapegoat for unrealistic optimism? Then, the board member who had initially raised concerns leaned back, crossing his arms as if bracing himself for a storm. But what happens if you champion this change and your ideas fall flat? Do you have a contingency plan? The question struck Jake like a blow. Contingency plans felt like surrender, like admitting he was unsure even before he began. But in the back of his mind, he knew he needed to face that doubt. He needed to confront it head-on. I won't shy away from the risk, he stated slowly, emphasizing every word. But I will prepare for setbacks. It's how we respond to challenges that will define us. We won't abandon solid principles, but I'm not afraid to navigate tumultuous waters if it means steering this ship into clearer skies. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline course through him. Each word ignited something deep inside, a burgeoning self-awareness that spurred him forward. He realized this was about more than just their apprehensions, it was about him forging a new identity that would require both courage and vulnerability. Yet, even as determination surged, anxiety lurked at the fringes of his mind, testing his resolve. Would authenticity crack under the weight of adversity? He recalled his own journey, the failures that had shaped him, the moments where he nearly lost his footing but emerged stronger. He made a decision, he would integrate learning from failure into his strategy. If we stumble, let us document our missteps. Create a repository of lessons that will guide our future efforts. Transparency is crucial both internally and externally. The room felt lighter somehow, and he caught glimmers of understanding flicker across the faces of fellow board members. They leaned forward, interest sparked by his resolve. This was the moment where he dared to embrace his fears rather than submit to them. But uncertainty was still a dark cloud hanging over him. Could his approach resonate with employees reluctant toward change? Jake had witnessed resistance before, not simply from corporate structures but from the very human heart. The thought of losing valuable team members paralyzed him momentarily. His voice softened. We cannot forget the people who have made this company what it is. If we are to move forward, we need their input and buy-in. Let us recognize their contributions and offer something in return, a partnership going forward. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the walls shift not just in the boardroom, but within himself. He saw himself crafting a legacy, calling for innovation without erasing the past. It felt radically empowering. The chairman nodded, contemplating the essence of Jake's proposition. You're suggesting a cultural shift, Jake, he observed, his tone mixed with a newfound respect. You are advocating for a synthesis of past and future. The realization landed heavy. This was not merely about business but the dynamics of a community, the intertwined fabric of aspirations, fears, and triumphs. He was learning to lead from a place of empathy, engaging with the heart of the company. But before the moment could linger, another board member interjected, what if the emotional stakes prove too heavy? Leadership doesn't just come with dreams, it also carries the burden of consequences. The undercurrent of tension surged again, darker this time. Jake felt fresh waves of doubt crashing against his newfound resolve. Whatever conscious change he envisioned would require a resolute commitment to navigate the turbulent waters ahead. With each passing moment, he felt himself towing the line between audacity and vulnerability. He had entered a space fraught with potential fallout but equally charged with opportunity. Preparing to respond, an electrifying thought cut through his apprehensions. What if he could turn personal misgivings into pivotal discoveries? What facets of himself remained undiscovered? What strength lay submerged beneath rising tides of uncertainty? The past had shaped him, perhaps the boundary of fear could define his future, urging him onward into a leadership role that encapsulated his evolving identity. As the meeting loomed closer to a close, he sensed a shift in the group, the ambience charged with both skepticism and curiosity. Whatever the outcome, Jake understood, this was the beginning of harnessing change in the most authentic way possible. But would he have the fortitude to stand firm as waves of dissent rose? Would his confidence erode under pressure or solidify into something resolute? With these questions searing his mind, Jake prepared himself for whatever shadows lay ahead. As the boardroom continued to buzz with apprehension and anticipation, Jake stood at a nexus where fear and innate courage collided. He recognized this was not merely a presentation, it was an unveiling of his vision, commitment, and identity firmly tied to the familial legacy. The stakes had never felt higher, and with every passing moment, clarity crystallized in him, not just as a contributor, but as a leader determined to actively shape the future. Look, let us redefine how we view leadership, he urged, his voice resonating with newfound authority, strengthened by their uncertainty. It's not merely about holding back fears or striving for traditional success, it's about fostering a culture that invests in connection and co-creation. We need to embolden every voice in this company, from the seasoned staff to the newest recruits. With each word, he felt the defense mechanism built on years of self-doubt begin to fray, unraveling in favor of a burgeoning confidence. As the board listened intently, Jake boldly leaned into his vision. By integrating our customers into this evolution, we're not just putting them first, we're creating an environment that thrives on participatory dialogue. We embrace the emotional stakes, address them head-on, and empower people. Silence blanketed the room, but rather than feeling stifled, Jake sensed an opportunity blossoming. He could feel the collective shift from skepticism to contemplation, as hesitant faces began to warm with recognition. The transformation he sought wasn't solely about business outcomes, it was personal, aligning with his deep desire to redefine his role and purpose. Let us devise a strategy that encompasses outreach, education, and engagement, he continued, heart racing, cementing those ideas into their collective ethos. We will initiate workshops driven by our newly tailored mission. Allow every team member to express their vision alongside ours, ensure they are part of the legacy we are creating together. This connection might very well be the key to unlocking our full potential. The room crackled with energy, and the gravity of his own words began to resonate inside him, amplifying the urgency both tangible and real. Jake didn't just want to make it. The uncharted territory of leadership ignited a profound realization. This wasn't merely a desire to avoid being sidelined, it was a true commitment to contributing meaningfully. The chairman, visibly impressed, faced Jake with a blend of reverence and challenge. You propose real change, Jake, but change is fraught with opposition. Are you prepared to stand strong against that resistance? Jake drew a steadying breath. This moment felt pivotal, teetering on the threshold of acceptance. Resistance is a form of engagement, he replied confidently. It exists as part of the journey. Instead of disregarding it, we must embrace it. By fostering open dialogues, we build trust not just with the board but within the heart of our organization. True leadership involves both guiding and allowing others to confront their doubts. As the momentum shifted, a fellow board member clenched his jaw, now engaging with intrigue. You may have a point. But how do you suggest we cultivate this trust so that dissent turns into collaboration? Let us evaluate dissent not as a challenge but as an opportunity for improvement. We can create a safe environment for feedback, a channel inviting honest discussions. Addressing anxieties head-on allows us to adapt, iterate, and shape our strategies dynamically. There's strength in vulnerability, it shows our adaptability as a family. That was it. The verbal dance of doubt transformed into audible promises. His evolving conviction wrapped around each word filled the room with potential. He wasn't just articulating ideas, he was weaving together a new model of prosperity, leading by example. He felt unwavering determination ignite, prompting him to regard not only the business but also his role an active participant claiming his stake within the legacy of their family. By embracing transparency and vulnerability, we forge deeper trust with our employees and customers, Jake concluded, his voice steady as he presented the vision he had crafted. New ideas may emerge from unexpected places, together we can evolve and grow while cherishing what makes us unique. I believe in our ability to adapt without losing sight of our family's legacy. A palpable murmur flowed through the room, and Jake watched as skepticism began to fray into threads of acceptance. He had done more than merely present ideas, he had emerged as a cohesive force, reshaping not only the board's perception of the business but also their view of the young man standing at its helm. As the meeting began to wind down, Jake felt an unmistakable wave of validation wash over him, not just from the board members but within himself. Was this truly happening? He was not just reacting to external expectations, he had prioritized his dreams and aspirations, intertwining them with the family's legacy. The chairman's final nod of approval ignited a flicker of hope. Jake, I see the potential in your ideas. Let us deliberate on this in our next strategy session. You've given us a lot to think about. The room erupted in a cacophony of nervous chatter, enthusiasm threading through the air. Jake took a deep breath, allowing triumph to seep into each fiber of his being. He was no longer just Kyle's brother or a forgotten voice. He had proven he could stand alongside the established figures, commanding attention and respect. He stepped out of that boardroom with a newfound pride and a firm belief in his abilities. Each obstacle faced had helped define him, sharpened by moments of introspection and resolve. Jake felt complete, standing not only as a cornerstone of change within the business but as a young leader finally claiming his identity. This wasn't just an achievement, it was a transformation, courage birthed from vulnerability, evolving into an unwavering confidence that connected deeply with his vision. The shift from uncertainty to resolute purpose served as a testament to his journey, a journey propelled by personal growth and commitment. Now, with a clearer vision ahead, Jake could reclaim his identity, view the familial legacy not as a shadow but as a platform upon which to build his future. Standing tall, Jake was ready to embrace the challenges ahead. As the last vestiges of tension dissipated, he realized once more that real transformation had emerged, not just through courage but through the courage to prioritize collective growth over personal ambition. His mantle of leadership now adorned with wisdom, Jake felt ready to not only navigate the future but to thrive in the best, most authentic version of himself. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible transformations and stories that inspire, empower, and resonate deeply. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, helping these tales reach hearts that need it most. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's journey or share your own stories of overcoming. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this culmination. Let us spread this message of hope and growth together.